I will do this, and I will do this. Please vote for me. Please vote for me. And we do.
It's about time to get with the program. Get
that out of the way. Are you ready?
Yep.
Welcome back, everyone. We've been gone for a little bit, but here we are. And with us, we bring, as always, Mr. Jesse Chaney, way down south.
Hello, folks.
Hi there, Jess. And we have Josh. Holy shit, Josh. Once again, he's making it a trend. He's from Utah, and he's with us.
Yes, I even made it back from the dead to come record.
Yes, he was nearly dying from a sickness. I think it was akin to neoliberalism, but he fought it off with a little bit of social justice. So
and orange juice.
I like to say economic justice and social equality.
Economic justice and social equality brought you back. Okay. Well, Jess, you were talking earlier about satanic panic, man. What the fuck is satanic panic?
Okay, so for some of those people who may or may not be listening that are a lot younger, the story I'm about to tell you, you're going to really, unless you go back and look at it, you're not going to believe that people actually thought this, but it's actually true. Satanic panic actually started off in the mid to late 60s and pretty much carried on, but it really saw its peak mid 80s, early 90s. Now, if you go back and you look, there's some key events that kind of happened. A big one was the Manson family murders because of Helter Skelter and Death to Pigs and, you know, the super scary pentagram. And that kind of got into the American psyche, and people fed on that fear. And when I say people, I mean media. This is roughly around the time when you started seeing the whole if it bleeds, it leads theory when it comes to like news and everything else.
Right.
Yeah. The biggest one that I can kind of just give a real quick one on is McMartin. McMartin's was a daycare in California. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was the name of it.
I usually pronounce it California myself.
Well, yeah, California. But basically what it was a family-run daycare center. And all it took was one mother who pretty much had a drug problem and everything else to really kick off this what we saw at the height of the satanic panic in the mid-'80s. So basically the story goes is her child came home and he was complaining that, you know, he was having pain in his butt region.
Oh,
now,
no.
Yes. Now instead, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a parent as well, but instead of, she took him to the doctor, and the doctor explained that, you know, they didn't see any signs of abuse, everything else.
Yeah.
Then more than likely the kid was just compacted because of the shitty diet that he was on, which was, you know, Fruit Loops, McDonald's, this, that, the other. Because, you know, if you go back and you look at the story and you look at the main cause of it, she wasn't exactly mommy of the year kind of, you know, material. But she couldn't let it go. So basically what she did is she got the police involved.
Whoa.
Now you got to think, these are daycare. These are not school-age children. These are daycare kids.
Yeah,
like we're
these
talking,
aren't even teachers. These are, you know, hourly workers taking care of kids. They're babysitters, right?
Exactly. And basically what it is she ended up forcing the police to investigate. Now what they did is they followed, you know, what this kid was saying was going on. Now this kid had been already prompted by his mother and fed kind of like, well, tell us what happened and tell us what happened. And it goes in the same vein of like false confessions. So the problem lies is what happened is now you've got police involved. They went in and they investigated. And then the police said, hey, we're not seeing any other signs of abuse. They put out flyers and everything else and actually contacted all the other parents of the kids that were in this daycare and said, hey, has your child been complaining of being, you know, is your child withdrawn as they, you know, they did this, or do they not seem right? Are they complaining about certain pains in certain areas? And most of those questionnaires came back with, no, their child's not complaining of anything.
Yeah.
And then in steps my favorite mustache moron, Geraldo Rivera. And basically what happened is now you got it kicked off, okay? So now you've got the whole if it bleeds, it leads category. And this kid started telling some fantastical stories about how they would kill babies under the school and how, I mean, some of the stories got so convoluted, but a lot of that happened because they brought in a therapist. Now, this therapist decided to try this radical new thing where they were actually pulling regressive memories from children. Now,
he was a hypnosis guy?
Well, it wasn't necessarily hypnosis, but it basically got into the point where it was leading questions. It was now come on, Billy, you know that we that we want you to tell us the truth. You want to make us happy, right? Well, tell us the truth, that'll make us happy. It's highly suggestible forms of questioning.
Yeah,
and
actually,
basically,
if anyone out there is following how to make a murderer, on Netflix, they talk in depth about this in the second part. Not to give anything away, but false confessions are a real thing.
Exactly, and it's the same basic principle. You have someone of and with children, I mean, it's limited intelligence just because of strictly their chronological age. So now the children are learning, and then it started off with one kid, and then a couple other parents saw the news reports and the this and the that, and then wait a minute, now they're talking about Satanism. And they were hardcore Christians. So now they started getting their church involved. And it just snowballed. And it just became this huge, gigantic thing. That was in the 80s. Okay?
Okay.
The son who was convicted of, on basically zero evidence, because by the end of this, at the height of what this investigation brought on, he ended up having like 105 charges of child molestation and all this other stuff. California convicted him, and they sent him and his mother to jail. And I can't remember. Fuck? Yeah, I can't remember if it was him or his mother that died. One of them just got out of jail like last year.
Oh my God! Last year,
with no evidence. I mean, the stories that these kids were coming out, it involved Hollywood's elite taking them on balloon rides across the country.
When did anyone realize they were just talking about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory at that point?
Exactly, and that's the thing. But the kids were coming up with all of these. Same thing with Planet Ping Pong, right? There was supposed to be this underground labyrinth, and this mother and son duo had this elaborate satanic ritual set up, and they were whoring children out to Satan and celebrities and godless people. But the thing is all this horrible stuff could never be proven with any physical evidence. I mean, the kids were talking about sacrificing babies, yet no bodies were ever found. Apparently, there was supposed to be a gigantic toilet, like huge, that they would flush the babies down. I mean, it was so bad that Geraldo Rivera was coming in. Oh yeah, and it was all of this, and it was all he came in and he did his investigating into the satanic, preschool, but that kicked off all this other fear. Right now, you had people afraid to take their kids to daycare because, maybe the Satanist stuff wasn't true, but there are little people out there that like to touch little kids and this, that, the other.
Yeah.
And that is when you started seeing this whole it integrated into society's fabric, as far as then it turned into you can't leave your children alone. The white paneled van and the stranger with candy. And
say with the satanic panic, then in steps actual serial killers like Richard Ramirez to fill that vacuum.
Yes.
Just to show you that there really is a boogeyman.
Well, not only that, then you had at the same time frame, in the early part of it, you had Alton LaVey come out with the Satanic Bible. Then you had the Exorcist book come out, and then you had the Exorcist movie come out. And then there were theaters, I remember seeing old press releases saying that there were theaters that were like, we will have an ambulance standing by for the weak of heart because, and the big thing was...
That's what all that was about. What about Faces of Death, like 1
exactly
22 or something?
Right. And that
I used to watch so much.
Me too.
Mm-hmm. So all of that kicked in. Now let me give you another really, really big historical case on this that is based on satanic panic and bullshit and fear.
Yeah.
Is the West Memphis Three. Damien Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jessie Miss Kelly. 3 kids who spent 18 years. Eccles was on death row for 18 years for a crime that A, there's no way that they could have committed. B, there was no physical evidence whatsoever linking them. C, it was the only evidence they really had was Jessie Misskelley's false confession, because they interviewed him for like 4 or 5 hours, and it's the same thing as in the Brendan Dassey case. I mean, he had a low IQ. He was under the age of 18. The police basically talked to him for like 3 or 4 hours before they ever turned on the recorder.
Jesus.
And even during his taped confession, you can hear the stops in the tape where they stopped the tape, corrected him on something, and then played it just to get it in his own words. And all of that stemmed from, and this is the fucked up part about that, all of that stemmed from not a police officer, right? Not a hunch from the number one detective in town, not the chief of police who was, hell-bent on getting rid of Satan in the community. It all stemmed from a probation officer who had it out for Damien Eccles. He hounded this boy when he got in trouble, and Damien Eccles really got into trouble for doing stupid, kid shit. Ran away from his house because he wasn't getting along with his parents, with his girlfriend, and they basically broke into an abandoned trailer and basically camped out for, I think it was like almost a full night. And then the police got him for burglary, and they charged Damien with lewd acts with a minor. So that's what got him in the system. Gee. But, I mean, how many kids did you go to high school with that wore black shirts or that were into emo music or, were the dark kids, that kind of thing? That is
Two-thirds? Yeah.
Exactly.
I was that kid. I was a kid who had long hair, Doc Martens, a big old leather jacket. I hung out with the quote-unquote goth crowd, which then made me the goth crowd, which then I got interested in the goth crowd, and I started wearing makeup. I may or may not have worn a dress. I may or may not have worn high heels. But it was really interesting, and what I find the most interesting aspect of it, especially here in Utah, is that the most open-minded people that I've ever met in Utah were people that were fascinated by death and who were outcasts and dregs of society. All those who were the uppity, good preppy kids and the good Mormon kids were fucking assholes that would literally scream at us every day of our high school. Fucking Gothic! Fucking Satan worshiper! Goat fucking killer!
Wait a minute. Wait a minute, Josh. So are you telling me?
It's insane.
Are you telling me you guys don't eat babies?
I know, right? I mean, I hate to burst your bubble, man, but I only think about eating babies. I don't actually take.
Well, exactly, but you nailed it right there. It's always those 3 things, and it always ends in Satan worshipers, and that's what happened to Damien Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jessie Misskelley. If it wasn't for Jessie Misskelley and his bullshit confession that he couldn't even repeat correctly at any point in time past the one that he made with the police where they recorded it. He confessed again to another police officer, and they recorded it, and it was nothing like the first one. His lawyer got a confession out of him, but this guy's IQ was really, really low. I mean, I'm not saying anything negative about him, but, I mean, he was dumb as shit, and the police took advantage of it. They lied to him about a polygraph. They lied, they basically lied, and they fed him key evidence. There was no physical evidence connecting any of these kids to the crime, but the guy that they brought in was this quote-unquote satanic expert who actually went through and taught other law enforcement officials around the country about satanic crime in your area and how it's on the rise.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yes, exactly. And it was just propagating this fear factor that anyone who doesn't toe that line and anyone who's not – the biggest thing that a lot of people don't understand is Christianity is one of the few religions that has a mock religion of it. There is an actual church of Satan that is an actual opposite of the Christian church. And I'm not talking about LaVey, and I'm not talking about Satanic Temple. I am talking about historical. And that didn't start until between the 12th and 14th century. But that is back in the day when the church told you how many times you could fuck your wife, how much money you had to give to them, how much land. I mean, the church basically ran every aspect of your life.
They basically created all the rebels. Yeah.
Exactly. So when you take adults and you treat them like children, they are going to act like children. Yep. And it's proven time and time and time again. So some people got together and.
I want to come back to what you were talking about. I want to come back to what you were talking about, Jesse, about how you are effectively getting policemen and then prosecutors to manufacture these stories about these guilty confessions. And I think a lot of that stems from you've got DAs that have win-loss tallies. They don't care. Yes. They don't care about justice. They care about win-loss. And that, in fact, in Salt Lake County, we have a man by the name of Sim McGill, who's the Democrat, who has a win-loss tally. Doesn't give a fuck about social justice. And so, quick story here. There was a guy by the name of Patrick Harmon in Salt Lake who was a schizophrenic. Cops didn't know this because they didn't bother to fucking ask him a single thing other than just intimidate this guy. But apparently he was on a bicycle. He crossed multiple lanes of traffic, and so the cops pulled him over. And their official report for why they pulled him over was because he didn't have a tail reflector on his bicycle. And so 4 cops are talking to him and talking about how they're going to arrest him, and you can see the sheer panic in his eyes. He ends up bolting, and 3 steps forward, he gets shot in the back. And then Sim Gill comes out and says, well, it's justified. Well, I ran into him about a year later, and I asked him about it, and then I didn't realize how salty I still was about it. But he told me that he's not going to take something into court that's going to get him laughed at. And he says that you need to change the precedent. And then so I end up yelling in his face and saying, well, how the fuck do you expect to change the precedent if you don't actually you don't actually try and change it? Well, I'm not going to take anything into the court if it's just going to get laughed at. I said, then hold a fucking press conference. That's not going to get you laughed at. And start trying to appeal to the court of public opinion. And that's how you change the precedent. You actually get people on your side. And so, people the system's broken because we care about wins and losses more than we actually care about human lives. And anyway, sorry for
No. That's believe it or not, completely
relevant, dude.
It is.
Yeah, and in fact, across the country, I think it's something over 90% of cases that are tried actually get settled because the DAs stack the deck with tons and tons of charges, and they say, look, you can plea right there, you can go ahead and plead guilty, and we'll give you this break, and we'll just give you a fine. Yes. We'll put you on probation. And people that don't even commit the crimes go ahead and take that because they can't afford lawyers. They don't have time to take away from their jobs in order to go through the actual system and get judged by their peers.
But there's another reason why. Nationwide, It's about 300 to 1. So for basically every dollar that the public defenders get, the prosecution has 300 times that. They've got the police, they've got the ME, they've got a crime lab, they've got crime labs, scene technicians, they've got experts on retainer, they've got all of this stuff to prove and to fight for justice. And public defenders, there's some public defenders that literally in a 12-hour day will not have enough time, even if they only spent 5 minutes for each case that they have on their docket. In a 12-hour day, they could never even see all of their clients who are sitting in jail.
They're taking the deals too.
Exactly. And so it's one of those things where it's like, look, I don't have time to fight for you. And if we do, it's going to be an open and shut because they've got all this evidence, even if whether or not it's real, as we see in, like you said, Making a Murderer, all of that we'll have a talk about that one day, me and you, but all of that evidence is either manufactured or it's incorrect or it's questionable.
Yeah.
And when you start talking about law and order and justice and someone's freedom on the line, if there's any hint of wrongdoing or it doesn't quite pass that smell test, it should be thrown out. And that's what the Constitution states. But it doesn't always get followed.
In the court of law, you're innocent until proven guilty, and they have to have the burden of proof is on the state. Well, correct. Whenever the state pulls some shit, like shooting a guy in the back after he walks away for 3 feet, isn't the burden of proof on the state to say that was justified? It takes them 5 minutes. They put him on paid leave, and then they talk about it for 2 days, and then they go back on TV and say, nah, it's okay, nothing happened.
Yeah, exactly, because it goes back to the state. The state cannot admit a mistake.
Right, fragile white people, and there's a black man running, even if he's not running directly at you. I feared for my life. Chris, what do you expect? He's a black guy, and he was running. And I'm just one white guy with 3 other white guys that are fully fucking armed. And here's a schizophrenic black guy that was riding a bicycle who's completely harmless. But you know what? He's a black guy, so I get a little scared. I mean, surely you understand, right?
I would not that it would make anything better, but I think I would applaud somebody who was black using that same reversal effect on a white guy and say, I shot the cop because honestly, I'm completely scared of these cops. And when he pulled me over and he said, step out of the vehicle, I saw him reaching for his weapon. Look, the button was undone, right? I had to pull my gun out and shoot him in the face.
Yeah. I mean, it is self-defense. Either way you go. I mean, especially in the state,
especially
that would be
in Florida.
And same thing in Georgia. Georgia's a stand your ground. I mean,
are you allowed to be afraid of a cop though? And I'm not advocating shooting cops, by the way.
No, neither am I.
I'm talking about it hypothetically here. But are you allowed to be afraid of the cops and stand your ground?
Actually, I don't think so.
There's a case in that going around right now. I can't remember where it was. I want to say Michigan.
This shit's getting ridiculous.
The SWAT team hit the wrong house. They did not identify themselves that they busted into this guy's house, and he shot 2 officers before someone tased him.
Oh,
and they tried, and they had him up on murder charges for that. And then finally, it went to the jury, and the jury found him not guilty. And they're like, "Well, how can you find him not guilty?" And they're like, "You never identified yourself." He saw a group of black-clad intruders entering his home.
They look they look like cat burglars when they
exactly.
Like that.
And he's like he said there was no badges, there was no big white letters that said police. They didn't break the window and shout sheriff's department. None of that. He saw and heard them actually getting ready to break into what he thought was breaking into his house. And as he creeped down the stairs, he's got a loaded .45, and he managed to think. I think he killed 2 cops, or he killed 1 for sure. I know that he got off. Which is good. I mean, and the funny thing is I'm pretty sure he was a black guy. But like I said, all of this still feeds into what we're talking about. And that is that basic principle that the satanic panic and everything else. I remember watching after the whole McMartin case and, it came out that, they were guilty and all this other stuff. Suddenly everything was satanic. Is your children's toy satanic? He-Man, Master of the Universe.
I remember
he's
that
satanic.
One. Yeah.
The Smurfs were satanic. That's when it bled over into the music industry. And Ozzy Osbourne had to stand up in court, and Judas Priest had to stand up in court and say, "Look, why would we put a message backwards on our record? Granted, it's going to destroy the record when you play it backwards, but why would we put a message on there to tell our fans to kill themselves? Because then they're not going to buy our music."
It was like the cultural McCarthyism.
Exactly, but that's exactly what it is.
Metallica got sued for Fade to Black because there was a kid who committed suicide, and Fade to Black it resonated with him. Here's a kid who just felt like he was at the end of his rope, and Fade to Black just made a lot of sense, and so he decided he wanted to kill himself, and Fade to Black brought him a little bit of comfort. And the parents, of course, had to blame Metallica. Metallica stand up in court to defend his music against Skipper Gore.
Yeah, but that's the thing But that all fits in because you see scared white Christian people are the ones that buy into this whole satanic bullshit. Don't drink Monster energy drink because if you look at the M on the Monster, it's Hebrew for 666. And we all know the Hebrews killed Jesus and the Jews killed Jesus, and therefore they're Satan. You know what I mean?
And it wakes me right after work.
It's this ugly fear loop that this just keeps getting propagated along and along and along. But statistically, we are seeing a dumbing down of society on a whole for the last 25 years. And the bad thing is like you said it earlier, McCarthyism. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that they had actors from movies. I think they had Bogart up there at one time in front of Congress trying to defend the fact that he wasn't a Russian.
Right? It's all fucking witch hunts, man.
Exactly.
People just get sucked into this thing like it's it's a mental disorder.
It's
fear. But it's viral. It's like viral fear. Yeah,
viral fear.
I think that's a tribal thing too. I'll bet that's imprinted. I'll bet Josh might be able to speak a little bit more on that one. But I'll bet that's part of being a male, right?
But you're right. But that is if you follow the tote line of being part of your community means going to your church, means going to here, going there. And it's like if you toe the line and you follow the crowd like a sheep, all's well. But then it takes that one person to stand up and say, well, wait a minute. Explain to me how He-Man is satanic. And then you go through it and you're like, you're dumb. You know what I mean? You start defeating their if you go with the whole satanic panic, every argument that you can bring up, I can destroy instantly by going, you follow just a stupid, made-up religion.
Kind of like antibiotic attacking
exactly.
the biotic inside of your body all of a sudden, or watching a game of Othello. It's like, boom, you flip one good chip, you knock them all out.
But like Josh said, when Utah, if he was emo, suddenly he's a Satan worshiper. Well, you can't be a Satan worshiper if you're not a Christian. Does that make sense? If you don't believe in any of it, and you don't believe in God, and you don't believe in the devil, how are you automatically a Satan worshiper?
You're just his pawn, I think, at that point.
Exactly. Yeah, that's their mentality. But, then again, it's one of those things. It's like people don't want to have that critical thinking skill, because to think for yourself is scary. Because if I start thinking about all the stuff that I grew up with, or all the stuff that everyone does, or then suddenly now I'm going to be ostracized from the herd of sheep or the herd of cow, whatever you want to call them, because now you're not reacting like everyone else is, right? And the reason I say that in the politics now is for the simple fact is there's a lot of, it doesn't matter, don't vote for any Republican, only vote for blue.
Right.
And then you get the Republican side saying Trump. Trump said there's 3,000 Hondurans on their way up here and they're armed and
I was just going to mention that. Nope.
Yeah, but
the Guatemalan caravan. Yeah,
exactly, the caravan. And the Democrats are going to open those borders and let them in to kill your children and rape your jobs and vote on election day. It's like, well,
right. Instead of Satan worshipers, they're full of MS-13 and gang members, right. And many people say, and yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Right, but if you go back and you look at it in a critical manner, and you start critically thinking, the U.S. has been destroying Honduras actively for the last 5.5 to 10 years, have they not?
Yep, and Guatemala and every other.
So we helped to stable an entire region and an entire country. We created these fucking refugees, and now Great Mighty Pumpkin and the fucktard in the White House is saying, oh, they're coming to kill your wives and steal your children and vote on your election day, and they're going to vote for Democrats because Democrats are going to let them in the country.
Well, and here, what the most interesting thing about that, though, Jesse, is so one thing I do want to point out is, if I recall, Reagan administration were actually the ones that were involved in the Civil War in El Salvador back in the 80s. But then here's where I find their hate for Hillary Clinton really disingenuous. It's public knowledge that Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State during 2009 that actually helped the coup in Honduras that made it the most unstable and the most dangerous place in the world at the time. Yep. And yet, how come we don't hear the Republicans saying, well, Hillary Clinton did this, Hillary Clinton did this? We don't hear that at all. Because they don't want it fixed.
If you mention Berta Cáceres, you get fucking crickets, too.
Yeah, and not only that, is because she toted the industrial war machines line and made all of their overlord masters a butt ton of money.
No, it's because they're playing the roles they're supposed to play.
Exactly.
Trump's a villain for the left, and Hillary's a villain for the right, and people that are aware of both are getting accused of being the opposite.
Right. So what my message is this, is if I didn't fall for the satanic bullshit when I was fucking 10, what the fuck makes you think I'm going to fall for it now in my 40s, but it's a political satanic panic, or it's the blue panic, or it's the red panic, or it's got, like right now I'm sitting here laughing because it's Schrodinger's fucking Immigrant. Either he's here to steal my job or he's too lazy to get a job. Which is it?
Schrodinger's Immigrant. That is beautiful.
Like, which is it? Is he going to take my job, or is he going to be is he just going to come here to suck up free healthcare and welfare?
Or is he going to murder us all? Or is that anybody? Yeah, right.
Yeah, he doesn't qualify for it.
Exactly, but that's that fear, that fear mongering, and I'm seeing that cycle coming back, especially in the media. If it's not foods that'll kill you, it's products that'll kill you. But we won't tell you what'll kill you until 11 o'clock tonight, so you got to watch all this shit. And then it's like, but this is going on, and the Democrats are going to take your health care, and the Republicans are going to take your Social Security, and this, that, and the economy is going to. It's all fear-based. Driven.
I actually heard a quote. It was Trump speaking to some old folks at a rally just for a brief moment, and he said, the Democrats are going to take your Medicaid away so they can pay for socialism.
Yes.
Yep.
Do you understand how ridiculously stupid that is?
Yes. Not only that is
You're
why
take away your socialism.
Exactly.
Why is, again, it goes back to that whole argument or that discussion we've had before. Why is it considered capitalism when they take my money, but when I ask for a return or a service for them taking that money from me, suddenly they're like, well, we're not a socialist country.
Exactly. Why don't we get dividends? If we're part of this nation and this nation has riches, why is it that you then also have to be some cunning, evil cunt to be able to have any of it?
Right, but because that's the whole thing is they've been stealing from Social Security for the last 50 fucking years. We're paying into a system we will never see a payout from because it will eventually get to the point where it's critical mass and it crashes.
It's literal thievery.
Exactly. It's not to be solvent. It's not to be put into the main budget. It's not to be there so they can take out to pay for whatever fucking war they did or whatever black op they need to fucking pay for, whether it's Vietnam or whether it's the bullshit that happened after 9/11 where we invaded 2 countries that had nothing to fucking do with it.
Well, how crazy is it that this crazy economic system is so bad that I wonder if you guys even heard in the news that J.P. Morgan Chase a couple of months ago said that we're due for a crash possibly as big as the one in the Great Depression here by 2020. Right. And so they're already saying, look, we're going to have a crash. Like they're already expecting it because the way capitalism works is it needs to have these crashes and it needs to have these and it's ridiculous.
Right. But you got to think about it is they did nothing to fix from 2008. Nothing. They bailed out AIG. They bailed out these 2 big
We all felt it. It's just that in the news, they didn't talk about it because they absorbed it by inflating certain things and bailing people out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I lost my 401k that probably.
So I was listening to.
Go for it.
I was listening to Chris Hedges, and he was talking about that. And from the bailout of 2000 or the crash from 2008. The Latino wealth is down 46% today than it was in 2008, and Black wealth is down 40% today than it was in 2008.
Damn.
Right, but if you look at the J.P. Morgans and you look at the dark Methuselah fucking family that runs the Fed, the Reserve, you look at AIG. AIG refused to take any bailout money unless it was written in the contract that they didn't have to pay it back. So what does that tell you? It just tells you that the economy that we are running on is absolutely, it's a shell game. It's like the stock market. It's bullshit. It's made up. It doesn't fucking exist. A lot of people don't know we don't control, the government does not control our own currency.
No, we can make requests, but actually we don't even make requests. The elite people, the chosen few that get picked in Congress get together and make that request, you know?
Correct.
Yeah,
but I mean, let me digress.
And then talking about the Fed and the Fed controlling the Fed controlling the money. Think of how gross it is that you see the people at the head of AIG or the head of J.P. Morgan Chase or the head of CEOs of the top 500 companies, and you see that they're like, oh look, obviously the economy is doing good, even though I just mentioned those numbers about how wealth is down from 2008 amongst minorities. Poor whites, I'm sure, are maybe better than poor blacks, but not by much. And yet the Fed is like, okay, well, it's time to raise interest rates. Well, for who? Who is that benefiting? That's not helping the working class. We can't fucking afford loans right now. And then you're going to raise the interest rates on us? Like, holy shit.
But there is no more working class. I mean, people like Bezos and Amazon and Walmart have seen to that. I mean,
there's no more middle class. There's still the working class.
It's all working.
I would say that it's the upper middle class is kind of the bottom of the middle class now. You would say it's upwards of $150K a year, and the rest of us are below that. And I call that kind of the working poor. People making less than $60,000 a year. I mean, you are scraping.
Yeah, but they have no problem taking taxes.
Yeah, right.
Right? They got no problem taking taxes. They've got no problem taking, tax dollars from our gas. They got no problem taking tax money from our schools. They got no problem taking tax money from lotteries. You know what I mean? State lotteries. It's one of those things that a lot of people, they need to fucking wake up and realize that if you did not have to pay as much in taxes as you do right now, and that actually went home with you, and the taxes were actually operating like they should be operating, to where the top 1% is paying a much bigger fucking share of it, you wouldn't see all this shit. But no, that can't have that, because that's not a capitalist attitude, right?
I actually don't mind. I don't mind paying the amount of taxes that I pay, but I shouldn't have to pay the amount of taxes that I pay and have the out-of-pocket expenses that I have to pay as well. And so therein lies the problem. That if we're going to pay taxes, it should be very much like these capitalist-ish countries like over in Scandinavia, where they have some method of socialism, but it's a democratic socialism, and but they still harness means to capitalism to reward entrepreneurs. But they do have very high tax rates, but they don't have the out-of-pocket expenses, and therein lies the biggest difference: is that we have high tax rates and we have high out-of-pocket expenses.
Right, but they also don't have corporate welfare in that country either. They don't give welfare. They don't give big tax breaks to industry. They don't give them. I mean, for fuck's sakes, explain to me how you've got the oil industry in America and the amount of money that these motherfuckers generate, yet suddenly they don't pay taxes, and we actually give them a fucking tax return every year, a refund every year.
And when we come back, we will try to explain that for Jesse. Yeah, more to come. Hold on.
We have a website, ProgressiveRampage.com. We have a website, ProgressiveRampage.com.
So we're back and we're talking about welfare for the rich.
Welfare for the rich. You know, they privatize gains and socialize losses when it comes to things that are too big to fail.
Correct.
And even when the people petition the United States legislative body to not give money to the banks, they say, great, we won't. And then they shut the doors, and then they fucking do it anyway and give them even more than they asked for in the first place. What the hell is that?
That's the actually absolute proof that the system is broken and that the country does not work.
Or we don't really know how the country does work, and that's all they can do to keep the system going the way it does. That is another alternate theory.
Well, like I said, going back to kind of what this core is, since can remember, my entire life has been fear-based driven, capitalism. By the right. If you don't buy this car, women won't want you. Don't drink this beer, women won't want you. Don't do this. But then it started escalating, right? So now that's why you see distinct illness in society. If our society as a whole went to therapy, we would be in therapy for fucking the next 20 generations. I mean, you've got people in this country that are preparing for either the zombie apocalypse, or they're preparing for the second coming of Jesus, or they're preparing for the fall of civilization. And these, and this is a very small portion. And don't get me wrong, I'm not bagging on preppers in any way, shape, or form. But realistically, the zombie apocalypse, I don't ever see that happening. Second coming of Jesus, last I checked, they nailed his ass to a cross, not a boomerang, so he ain't coming back.
Definitely not.
Fall of civilization, I can see just on the simple fact that if you look at how Rome fell, we're pretty much in that same boat as we speak. You've got corruption at the top, a very, very small portion of the population with all the power and the resources and the money, basically using the other 99% of the available population either as slave labor or as, wardens to keep the slaves in line. I mean, we're doing that now to ourselves.
And with that, I was doing a little bit of research. Chris mentioned kind of tribal fear, and I found a Big Think article. I think that goes right into the fall of civilization. So I wanted to read just a couple of paragraphs from you guys, but it's from May 14th of 2012, and so imagine how much more tribal we've gotten from here. But it's a Big Think article from David Ropiak. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name correctly, but it says, tribalism is pervasive and it controls a lot of our behavior, readily overriding reason. When I was a kid, my synagogue controls a lot of our my synagogue was right across the street from our Catholic church. Bellevue Avenue made such a clear dividing line between us, the chosen people, and them, the enemy. No doubt the view from the other side of the street was the same. I had no idea at the time what a powerful metaphor these few lanes of asphalt made for one of the most significant aspects of human behavior, the powerful instinct of tribalism. It's everywhere, protecting us by readily overriding reason and morality and pretty much anything else that could dim our chances of survival, and it's threatening us at the same time. Maybe you read about one recent manifestation in the New York Times about the Orthodox Jews of Williamsburg section of Brooklyn who shunned a neighbor after he told police about a man, a fellow Jew, who was sexually abusing his son. You'd think that a father protecting his son would be the sort of behavior that would be honored. Nope, not if it's disloyal to the tribe. That's the synagogue side of the street. How about the long, loathsome record of Catholic Church authorities abandoning their morals and forfeiting the safety of vulnerable children by covering up, ignoring, or denying extensive evidence of child abuse by a small number of priests? Same thing. Tribe first, moral second. And this is exactly where we are. We've got the tribe of Democrats saying, but Russia, the Republicans, I get that, they voter disenfranchised, but they do it for Republicans. We do it because we're trying to save you from yourself. We can't have you voting for Bernie Sanders because you guys just don't know what you want. And so we're here to protect your, and then the Republicans are like, but, look at these guys. They're going to let a caravan full of MS-13 guys come in. And it's insane. Pure insanity.
Right. But if you look at it, their very, very nature of our current standing and sitting policy on everything from who you can talk to what you can put into your body is still highly regulated and based off of bullshit and based off of religious doctrine. We did not have organized crime in this country until Prohibition. We didn't. There was no profit in it because everything was, hey, well, who the hell am I going to make? I can't compete with the breweries.
Basically, it's every time a vacuum is created, something has to fill it. And the first thing to fill it is the most liquid money. And you would say that's probably people doing devious activities.
Exactly. Perfect example.
Crime increases every time that happens.
Well, and that's capitalism 101.
Right, that's not true capitalism.
Well, drug dealing sure as hell is.
No. Well, exactly. That's what I mean. Because if that was a true word, if capitalism in its truest form, what they want us to believe that America is a capitalist country in its truest forms, why the fuck are we locking up drug dealers?
Right. And why the fuck are we bailing out banks? Exactly. The other side of capitalism, the dirty dark side, where people fuck up, and it happens more often than you'd imagine. That's when you're supposed to fail. And then people can pick themselves up with their millions and millions of bootstraps they have tucked away and lying around and try again. But no, instead, we've decided to bank our entire country on these institutions. And so if they did fail, we'd end up in instant poverty. I don't understand why our country is even constructed this way. Because
it's not a true economy. A true economy, perfect example. They bailed out GM. GM was too big to fail, and that's an Obama success story of how they saved GM from going under. Realistically, if GM would have failed in the United States, you're looking at maybe 50,000 jobs gone, right?
Yeah.
Maybe. How many jobs worldwide would that have cost Mexico?
I don't know.
China.
Yeah.
All these other countries that but all these other countries that our jobs were outsourced because they wanted to make more money and more profit. I didn't see China kicking in money to help bail out GM. I didn't see Mexico kicking money to bail out GM. No, it was me. It was you. It was a taxpayer dollar that fucking did it.
Sounds an awful lot like what the TPP was supposed to do to the rest of us.
Right. And that's the thing that gets me but it's still going back to, like you read about, tribalism. I do believe that the lizard portion or the more primal portion of our brain says in larger numbers, we will have a better chance to survive. We're not that primal animal anymore. We're the stoned ape that suddenly found out if I eat the magic mushrooms and then I can see and hear things and I've got a whole different consciousness level now.
I want to eat your critical thinking. Car. Yeah.
Right.
Well, and overcome my fear.
And that's the thing is how is it in this country we can be so afraid and so weak in today's world that mere words fucking destroy us. Like the Joe Rogan podcast that he just put out about the PC bullshit. That's what kept going through my head. How is it you are so weak, and we have raised an entire generation so weak, mere words destroy them?
It's amazing. And the argument against what you just said, which I agree with you, Jesse, but the argument against that is, well, why do you find the need to be mean and use those bad words in the first place? And all I can think of is, well, maybe I don't have to, but eventually somebody will. I mean, anger's not ever going to disappear. There is no such thing as a no negative society. That there's no utopia. You can't get there.
No, a utopia. My utopia punishes stupid people.
And think, well, Jesse, your utopia won't let a whole lot of people in to begin with.
Oh no! You can come in, but if you're stupid, you're going to be punished. It's just a law of nature. You don't see a stupid fucking zebra in the wild.
Okay.
You might, but that's usually the guy that turns into lion poop at the end anyway.
Yikes!
Right.
Anyway, I guess the point is that. Of course, there's no reason to bully other people. But should you get bullied, wouldn't it be better to live a life where bullying doesn't necessarily make you completely break down and possibly kill yourself? I mean, think about it.
Right, but you're going from one extreme to the next. Now you've got people who are fighting for that victim status. Well, you can't be more of a victim than me because I'm a gay black man who's Jewish, who was...
It's still a competition. It's capitalism victimization.
Exactly.
Victimized capitalism? How do you do that?
So you've got people who are sitting here, and I get you, saying, it is wrong to bully someone. But then they in of themselves turn around and bully that person that bullied the person. So I'm going to bully the person that bullied someone else. Doesn't that make you the bully? Well, no, I'm standing up for the person who was bullied, but you're bullying the bully.
Bully.
You know what I mean? So it's like
what I found most fascinating about the Joe Rogan podcast, which was 1191, the one that Jesse was referencing, is that they actually so a couple of these guys they were submitting these journal articles, and so they were getting accepted. They talked about how if you get one or two, accepted and printed in a year, like that's a huge thing. Then they laughed and said, "So we wrote 20 of them." And they got 4 of them that were printed, and they got 3 more of them, I think, that were accepted and that were going to print, but then they got found out. Well, one of the things that they got accepted was Mein Kampf.
Yeah.
But they got what they did with Mein Kampf, they just changed Jew to white man and basically just punched down on the white guy, and they just fucking loved it. And so it's really interesting, the power dynamic. And while I will absolutely readily admit that white men have definitely had their heyday, and we've had all the power, we've had all the cards, the 3 of us together are working class people. Like, yeah, granted, we have probably been insulated from certain hardships that we haven't had to face because we're not black or we're not people of color. That doesn't necessarily mean that our lives are crazy easy. And it's interesting how it's okay to punch down on white people rather than say, well, maybe you don't understand my struggle to the full degree, but I definitely understand that you struggle. But yeah, it was a fascinating episode.
That myth of whiteness. Remember, who is it that wrote that piece, right? About how we're all called white because the rich wanted to get the poor to be divided. Yes. And they said, if you keep that black man off my back, one day you'll be just like me.
Exactly.
So the punching down on white people is a byproduct of that fucking nonsense.
Right, but at the same time,
they don't want a class war.
Right. But it's one of those things people don't understand. You go from one extreme to the other, and you're just constantly bouncing from one extreme to the other. Right? We went from being an extremely racist country in the beginning of the 20th century, but so was the rest of the fucking world.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, everyone tends to forget the Dutch are the ones that fucking ran the slave trade in the 1600s. It wasn't fucking white Americans. It was Dutch. They ran the shipping. They ran the lanes. They're the ones that went over and had, tribes capturing other tribes and saying, look, you bring me tribes or I take your tribe into slavery. Well, suddenly, they had no problem bringing other tribes.
All the other European countries, though, they really weren't involved in all of that shit.
No, exactly.
People are made up of a big mixture of a lot of those, at least some white folks. But
now but my point is, we went through that horrible civil rights era, and I mean horrible in the simple fact that the establishment did not want to grow with the sentiment of its people.
Right.
So then now we've got that swing going all the way across. I mean, I've never gotten a job because they needed another white guy to fill a fucking number for a quota. Have you?
No, didn't they do away with that nonsense?
No. First, affirmative action is still in effect. And I'm not saying anything negative about it because it is something that needed to be in place to help change that social attitude.
Legit.
I agree, definitely legit. But now in today's age, I don't really think that it's needed because then you're not allowed to. So we're a capitalist country. I'm an entrepreneur. I have a company, but now I've got the federal mandate saying I'm supposed to have X amount of black people, X amount of women, X amount of Asian women, X amount. You know what I mean? Now you're going to throw in all the other 72 fucking genders where I've got to have a one-legged fucking unicorn that poops fucking cheeseburgers, but only on Tuesdays.
What you're saying right now, and in jest, of course, Jesse, is exactly the reason why there's a lot of people out there that thought affirmative action, although it was a good sentiment and a good idea to try to level the playing field, was a social engineering failure in that it allowed for even more ridicule. So once you did let these people have a fighting chance at getting the job, the people that were letting them in didn't really know how all this shit worked.
Right.
So they were just letting people in, and so everyone else was judging them. Oh, well, are they even capable of doing the job? It actually didn't bridge any divide at all. It increased it. And I think that might have been a failure by accident. I'm not saying that it was done on purpose to make things worse, but think about, like, Clinton starting the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, right? I almost said Bernie Mac there, rest in peace. But, like, did he really know that it was going to become a bubble and just explode, or was he only thinking about investors at the time so he could make a bunch of money?
He was only thinking of investors. But you got to remember, too, is Clinton's also the one that signed in that fucking wacky-ass anti-terrorism fucking bullshit law that does not and basically fucks every American for habeas corpus.
Well, and Clinton on one hand does Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and on the other hand has his wife touting super predators.
Right.
And so, it's try to have their cake and eat it too.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this is all basically what I've been seeing for the last 2 decades. It's fear-based economy or it's war-based economy. Well, after 9/11, suddenly now people were more than willing to sign away and be like, well, I'm patriotic. I guess the Patriot Act is there to protect me. No, it just gives them as much power as they want to fuck with whoever they want, however they want. We didn't even go after the right countries. We didn't even go for the people that were involved in, 9/11.
Actually, that's a pattern, Jesse, isn't it? Like yes. World War II, we're war-based, and then after World War II, we're fear-based with the Red Scare, right?
Right.
And then after the Red Scare, we're war-based again with
But what that Red Scare? What did that Red Scare do? That Red Scare helped to get us into the Korean War. Because North Korea
dragged us back into war-based again. So if we're doing fear right now, well, I guess what do you think's around the corner to try to keep Trump in office for 2020?
Iran.
Like they did with Bush.
I'm thinking it's going to be Iran or it's going to be Kyrgyzstan or something.
And who wants to place a bet that the New York Times is going to back Trump in 2020 in order to maintain the war economy? Because that's what they did for Bush. I'm just throwing that out there as a prediction. Because they did that against John Kerry.
They still need to get the gas pipeline in Syria, so we can disrupt Russia's economy by having U.S. Or whoever's controlling Syria at the time distributing natural gas to the needs of Europe, which would totally tank Russia, and it would be a huge hit to them, which is the whole reason why we're in Syria in the first place.
But why would
Syria is still not a done deal, so we need to.
Right, but not only that, why would Trump okay anything that's going to negatively affect Russia's economy unless Russia's on board with it? Because we all know he's giving fucking hand jobs to Putin.
So,
just like he's giving hand jobs to
I think that. But Trump is a moron, but he's not stupid. And what I mean by that is he's a moron. He just says a bunch of dumb shit because he doesn't really try to think ahead. But he's not stupid in that he knows what to do and he knows what to say to get people excited and get people distracted. Like, oh my gosh, he said something nice about Putin. Meanwhile, as we're focused on that, they're gutting Social Security or they're voting to gut it, or they're and so he does stuff like this on purpose. So he manufactures this outrage, he manufactures this distraction, and so he's a moron, but he's not stupid.
Definitely doing a good job at being a distraction, just like his old job of being a distraction.
But see, the thing is I'm beginning to think that it's you're giving him a lot more credit than I think he deserves. The guy is an absolute fucking moron. Whoever put him in power and whoever's pulling his fucking whoever's got their arm like up his ass to the fucking elbow, running that fucking mouth of his, that's the true person that's in the power. Because like you said, they're the ones that, well, gee, he put in the whole SCOTUS thing, and yet that during that whole debacle and how everyone was up in arms about Kavanaugh and this, and he's a rapist and he's a tickler, and he's a non-consensual sex enthusiast. Can't say rapist anymore. They voted that tax break into law that was supposed to go away. They got no play until after it was done.
Yep.
No play whatsoever. And once everyone voted on it and it became, written in stone suddenly, then it came out that, oh yeah, by the way, while you guys were all looking over here, we did this over here. And
not to mention, and I should mention, because everyone else had to fucking mention, the fact that one of the accusers brought out by Avenatti, who had said that she had gone to his little rape parties where they were spiking punch or something, came out and said that she completely fabricated the story. Mm-hmm. That's not taken away from Christine Ford, of course, but it is saying that as they were telling that story, they were compounding it with all this extra sensationalist breaking news on CNN and whatnot, and having these assholes on there telling half-truths that aren't vetted, and then this crazy nonsense happens. And I'd really like to make it clear, I wish they would just tell Kavanaugh to go to hell because of what he's done to the country, not because of the other stuff that he's done to Christine Ford.
Exactly. It's like I said before, there was enough on his own merits to deny him anything. He's a shitty judge. He's not a judge for the people. He has no...
But this was a circus to help rich people. And
exactly.
It's really fucking sick that they used a person's sexual assault history in order to help rich people. And I wish people would look at that fucking disgustingness.
But then again, that is the new satanic panic, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of people don't understand is it gets scary because they're doing shit that will affect us long term, right? It may not be immediate, but it'll be long term. Bad thing is that stupidity and that fear is trickling down to start affecting people on a local level, where you've got the DA who doesn't want to investigate who actually killed 3 children when he's given 3 little fucking miscreants that, hey, we got one of these dumbasses to confess to the murder even though he didn't know anything happened. Well, let's run with that and throw these guys in jail. West Memphis 3 is a story of 6 kids, 3 that were murdered and 3 that had their lives completely fucking ruined because of that fear mentality.
Who started the lie in the first place on the 3 that were falsely convicted?
That would have been the I can't remember his name. My brain's
was it like
fried,
a neighbor or a family member? Or
no, it was a goddamn parole officer.
Oh, the parole officer, right.
Probation officer.
Officer.
And he went and kind of, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it was 3 little boys who were tragically murdered. And of course, it's a rallying cry before they found them dead, they were missing. So everyone, I mean, cops were pitching in, firemen, adults, everyone. And I understand that sense of community. But once these little boys were found, that little fucking creep of a piece of shit person who, I'm not going to say his name because if I say it 3 more times, I'm going to have to find him and pretend he's Beetlejuice. He is the one that put those 3 names, but Damien Echols' name in that spotlight. Oh, that looks like a satanic murder to me, and you're going to be looking for Jason or Damien Echols because he's a Satanist, and I know he's a Satanist because I'm his parole officer.
Let me ask you guys something. With the satanic panic, do you think that there's a way to harness the outrage machine? For instance, I recently came out with a Twitter thread, and the first is a thread, and it's got a picture of me, and I'm kneeling with a flag in my hand. And the story behind that is I was actually at a Trump Care rally to end the zombie bill, and I had somebody actually ask me, "Hey, why don't you go ahead and kneel?" I thought, okay, well, that's actually a good idea. So I knelt, and I got a lot of good publicity, a lot of good comments from people and support. But I also
suspect it was quite a nice shirt you were wearing.
Yeah, I was wearing an Our Voice shirt, and so and I suspect people will say, "Well, you're trying to co-opt this," and I kind of want them to. I kind of want people to start starting to getting mad and start outraging a bit. Like, look at this guy trying to co-opt this, and this is a healthcare bill. This isn't police brutality. Well, let's talk about the overlapping here. The people who lack who lack health care are overwhelmingly going to be very poor people and very much people of color. And so to allow 55,000 people a year to die because of lack of health care, which Obamacare mitigated about 30,000 of those, I think that's pretty brutal too. And so there's certain areas of brutality that I think that we can join in without necessarily co-opting, though you can purposely kind of set yourself up to allow for that co-opting message to get people mad, to create an uproar, to manufacture a little bit of outrage in order so the people who may make a fuss that you actually respect, perhaps they'll let you on and actually unpack your thoughts on the idea. And then, if you bring it back outside of the outrage machine and you bring it back with a intelligent comment, intelligent discourse to kind of back up your motives. Now, I'm curious your guys' thoughts on that.
Well, I do want to say real quick, one little thing. That sounds an awful lot like a nice little song that Jessie stars in called Everyone Screams and Yells. I just want to mention that.
Yeah, that's true.
And, the problem about it. Anyway,
yeah. The problem is once you put it out there for the outrage machine to catch, you can't pull it back out, right? You're trying to take a well-portioned idea, if you will, and load it into a cannon and shoot it into a crowd. Now, granted that the shell may be made of flowers and instead of something that's going to kill you, but the problem is you just shot a cannon at a crowd. I don't think that you can use the outrage machine in the beginning to get that message started and then reel it back in with, like you said, clear, concise debate or conversation and unpack ideas and explain it out in a nice, calm, rational way, because the outrage machine is going to have to scream louder than all the other people that are outraged this week over Halloween because someone dressed up in a kimono, or Halloween because, you know what I mean?
I like your point, and so I'm curious about the so let's say since I put it on Twitter and the outrage machine goes bananas on Twitter, and let's say there's the progressive soapbox or the progressive voice or the rational national or even secular talk or the humanist report, these people that I actually respect, and say they then hop on it because it's creating fuss, and then I reach out to them and then I jump mediums. So no longer am I talking on a two-dimensional platform that doesn't that lacks inflection, that lacks dimensionality, and then I can actually go on to somewhere where I can express my views in a calm, collect manner. Have somebody who's very much capable of critical thinking and who can question me and take it in kind, and then again unpack that. And this is where I think that there is certain power in the idea of no such thing as bad publicity, though that is definitely a firecracker that could go off in my hand.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, but I don't know. Like I said, it's getting to the point now where I'm fatigued. I'm getting to the point where I don't even want to listen to Trump. I don't want to hear shit that's going on in politics. I really don't. The last thing that I heard from Trump that hurt my brain so bad, I was just like, I got to stop and just, I don't care. I don't want to hear nothing. Was he wants to use an executive order to kill birther rights? Is that correct?
Yeah, he says at first he said he wanted to kill the 14th Amendment, and then he said he spoke to some lawyers who claimed that the way it's written, it doesn't have to be extended to people who have children here if they're illegal and the kid's born in the United States. No,
I don't think they said specifically. He did not use the word illegal. He used non-citizen.
Well, right, a non-citizen having a child in the United States.
Yeah. Stop. So that being said, right, his own son was no longer a U.S. citizen then. Melania was not
born before she was a citizen?
Yep, 3 or 4 months before, because he was born in March and she wasn't legalized until July or July or something like that.
I wonder if anyone's going to tell him that.
Oh, I don't know. I say let him go for it.
And Ivana saying that Ivana had Eric, Don Jr., and Ivanka before she was ever a citizen. So that means all 4 of his kids are
exactly. So I say let him have his EO. That's fine, or executive order. You do what you got to do, because once we pop these people out of the country, then we can freeze all of their assets, because technically all of their money is now generated from unlawful, therefore criminal activity. Correct.
And he put all of his companies into their names too, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly. But guarantee you now, it'll be worded differently. It'll be only if you're Mexican.
Or they'll make it retroactive, right?
Exactly.
Kind of like they did for John McCain, so that they could rest in pieces, by the way, so that they could make sure he could run for office one day. He wasn't born in the United States. He was born on a military base.
Yeah, and then it's just like, what's his nuts? He was born in Canada. He's Canadian.
Yeah, right? What's his nuts? Oh, Mr. Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, Captain Yeehaw. It's more like, hey, how's it going, eh? You know, it's just one of those things that I know why he's doing it. It's just to stir up trouble. It's just like he said, it's distract. But like I said, I'm more afraid of seeing a larger version of Satanic Panic start hitting on affect more people on more of a local level. So now you're going to have, like, I mean, you already see videos now of where ICE stops buses and goes in and asks people for fucking papers. Like, they did that shit in Germany, dude.
Yep.
You know, and they're telling people that have valid ID, well, show us something else. Show us this, show us that. It's like, I'd be telling that ICE guy to go fucking take a long walk off Short Pier. Kiss my ass. Here's my ID. Run it. You know,
yeah, I'm pretty worried about what might be happening, transpiring at the border with the troops that are going to get sent.
Right. Well, not exactly. Not only that, now you got the whole legalizing issue with Canada. Now, our U.S. borders, technically, we can deny all Canadians coming into the country.
We could.
Because if they answer the questionnaire of, have you smoked marijuana? Well, it's maybe legal in your country, but it's illegal here, so we don't have to let you in. Yeah, it's insane.
I wonder. You know? Yeah. Do we let them into Maine? I haven't even looked into that because we're a border state.
I don't know. It all depends on the whims of the Border Patrol now.
Hey, Canada, come on over here to the right side.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, like, that's my biggest fear, and I'm starting to see that more and more and more. And you start paying attention. You start paying attention to what's happening on local levels, and you're going to start seeing that trickling down of that stupidity and that it's stupid and fear. And when you mix them together with someone that has just a small amount of power, it can devastate large populations. I mean, look at Alabama. Alabama, the feds have said that CBD oil with no THC in it is not a scheduled narcotic. Right. It's nowhere on the list. But Alabama's narco police have read into it something a little bit different along the lines of, but it's made from an illegal plant. Therefore, we're going to say it's illegal. And now they're starting to throw people in jail for having CBD oil, which on the federal level is not illegal.
You can have it mailed to yourself.
Not in Alabama.
Alabama. Holy shit.
And Alabama actually licensed dealers to sell CBD oil, and now they've pulled all those licenses and given these companies opportunities to get rid of their product or have their product seized and then be arrested because they're now selling something that they have deemed illegal, even though it goes against federal statute.
That's amazing.
And that is the perfect example of fear and stupidity with a little bit of power.
I hate to cut this short, but I'm going to have to bid you adieu. I've got an antsy 6-year-old that needs my attention.
Oh, well, that's...
All right, guys. Well, I've really enjoyed it. You know, as always, I appreciate your thoughts. And party on Wayne, party on Garth, and that makes me a roadie, I guess. So have a good one.
Go. All right, Josh. Nice talking to you.
Jesse, as always, it's a pleasure, man.
It is.
Any last words for the people?
All I want to leave everyone with is this: is stop being so afraid. Stop being so stupid. Do a little bit of critical thinking on your own. Re-fucking-lax. The Earth isn't going to fucking end. The zombies aren't on their way. And MS-13 is not invading us from fucking Guam or Honduras or Go-Fuckistan or wherever the fuck you're supposed to be coming from. You're going to be fine. Tomorrow is Monday. Everyone will go to work just like normal. The world isn't going to end. So calm the fuck down.
And don't forget to vote.
And vote. That is right.
Yeah, don't forget there's voting involved. Yeah. All right. Take it easy, everybody.
See you later.
Go again, please. Somebody.
No shit.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No shit.
Yeah.
Stop. So that being said, right?
That is another alternate theory.
I know, right?
Okay, all right.
Is the
I know, right?
Okay, all right.
The Smurfs were satanic.
I know, right?
The Smurfs were satanic. The Smurfs were satanic.
I know, right?
The Smurfs were satanic. The Smurfs were satanic. The Smurfs were satanic. The Smurfs were satanic.
Happy belated Halloween.